Let's take parables, for instance. In a parable, perfect example of this understanding. Now, we all know that a parable was one of the preferred methods that Jesus chose to teach, and especially multitudes. And for a very good reason. A parable allowed the varying levels of intellect for the receiver, the recipient, the people hearing the truth. It allowed them to adapt the truth to their current intellectual capacity, their current level of spiritual discernment within a crowd of people, all different types. Some were well educated, highly spiritually endowed. Some were not educated at all and had no spiritual discernment, and then all the varying levels of intellect in between. Teaching within the parable allowed this truth to be adaptable as these minds, these varying levels of intellect, received it. And that ensured that all types of people, no matter what class, what status they came from, could extract some truth from this. And that the truth being entirely consistent, that no matter what level it was perceived at that time, it would always be consistent with the successive levels of higher truth after it. And that's the exact same thing that we're teaching. But if we want to kind of understand the fullness of why this letter could killeth, it becomes when we crystallize this truth and do not allow it to be adapted by the higher intellects of the current age, who have different experiences from these peoples of the past. So let's use this for a further example. Let's take some of these people from that crowd that were taught this parable of truth, and let's say that some of these people of lesser intellect, lesser spiritual discernment, were the ones that recorded this truth. And even if it was those of high spirit discernment, high spirit intellect, we find out that they themselves are still limited in their understanding of the fullness of the truth than someone is of today's age, because someone's of today's age has more leisure time, more access to the scriptural records than somebody did of the ancient past. It wasn't compiled like it is today. In the past, there was a lot of effort, a lot of travel, a lot of inside, in the know knowledge, who you knew, what connections you had to connect all of these spiritual truths together. So the fullness of the spiritual discernment can be had by somebody of the lowest intellectual capacity just by the simple fact that they have access to more books. So even somebody of limited intellectual capacity of today might have more spiritual discernment of somebody in the past just because they got more access to it. So you can see it on the varying levels that if we're to take somebody out of the crowd, no matter what level of intellectual capacity they have, if we were to crystallize that current understanding of truth that they had, it wouldn't be progressive. It would be at least limited by their current level of intellectual capacity to receive. Whatever intellect that was, whether it was high or whether it was low, it would still be limited by that amount. Well, the truth is not limited ever by any amount. Even the ages to come, the truth will continually expand beyond the borders, beyond the horizons of our current capacity to receive it. But it will be ever and entirely consistent with the direction of travel of which it originally goes. And that's towards the center of all things, towards paradise, towards the perfect creator, the Father of all things. Entirely consistent. And that is the path, that is the way that has been prepared by Jesus Christ, with this truth that has been given to us based upon anybody's intellectual or spiritual capacity to receive. How beautiful is that? So, just thinking about it like this, you saw me tie up this shadow, the symbol form, writing in paper, and then of course the pencil. This pencil lead now is carbon. Well, we know that we're made from the dust of the earth, that mankind is made from the dust of the earth. Well, this dust of the earth just so happens to be the carbon atom. Well, this carbon atom, symbolically in a pencil, does shading to create what? A shadow. Connections are everywhere. I'll be back.